It's Saturday, the 5th of May, and this is your EV News Daily. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're listening around the world. A very warm welcome from London in the UK. Here is today's news about electric cars and the future of transport. My name is Martin Lee, and I go through every EV article online, so you don't have to. Coming up on the show today, we will talk about Musk taking aim at a couple of analysts for being Tesla shorters. But first of all, we'll start with Audi. Yesterday on the podcast, we mentioned VW Group's huge battery order. Contract signed now for 40 million euros, 48 million US dollars. And Audi's all-electric e-tron Quattro is their first foray into the EV market. For a long time, we've been calling it the Audi e-tron, but they seem to be calling it the e-tron Quattro. So this is a coming together of a couple of Audi models, neither of which you can buy right now, but both of which are on the streets. The e-tron Quattro was last seen in Geneva, well, actually the New York Auto Show, but the Geneva Motor Show, where journalists were being ferried around in pretty much finished versions of the e-tron Quattro. Not too much more work to do on it. And then the other big Audi electric car, which we've talked about recently, is the one at the Formula E race, the e-tron Vision Gran Turismo. This was the one that started life as a computer game car, and Audi gave its engineers permission to go and build one for real. Well, they've shown off the e-tron Quattro SUV, pulling the Vision Gran Turismo inside, it's on a trailer, it's on a flatbed, but it's kind of got sides, that kind of thing. And it's not the first time that electric SUVs at least, have been pictured towing something. You may remember the Tesla Model X towing something out of the Boring Company's tunnels, was it? What were they towing on that? I remember seeing the images of that, and of course some really famous YouTube videos in a tow-off. You know, where they have two cars facing in opposite directions. One's a big gas guzzler, and one of them's the Tesla Model X. And the Model X always wins, of course, four-wheel drive and all that battery power to rely on. So Audi's first all-electric SUV, it's going to have a 70 kilowatt-hour pack, 3 electric motors actually, 2 at the back and 1 at the front. Total output on that of 320 kilowatts and DC fast charging of 150 kilowatts, so that you're not hanging around filling up your battery for too long. All right, moving on, and the story about Elon Musk and the analysts just keeps on rumbling on. I thought this was... So, first of all, cards on the table. I'm no investor... I was going to say in Tesla. I'm no investor in anything anymore. I used to be. There's a famous Jerry Seinfeld skit. Jerry Seinfeld's got a few bob, a few 100 million. And he says, people always say to him that he should make his money work. And he likes to let his money rest. He likes to go to work. And he likes to give his money the day off. I'm of the same opinion. I don't mind working hard to earn the money. I like to give my savings a bit of a rest. So I do preface this story by saying I'm no investor, and I do take a keen interest in what Tesla is doing, obviously, but for no other reason. There's no investment advice here. But as you may have heard by now on the earnings call, Elon Musk had it wasn't even a falling out. It was just one of the analysts asking, and I've listened back to it, by the way. You can go onto the ir.tesla.com mini site and listen back to the earnings call, and I have done it. We should podcast it, actually, over the weekend sometime. If you missed it, I'll edit out all the ums and the ers, and with Elon, you know there's a lot of pauses. And we'll put that... I don't think I'm breaking any copyright. Well, Tesla can tell me off if I am. And we'll put that online as a podcast. You can hear it. And it's super fascinating. But I did listen back to the question where Elon got a bit frustrated. They've got 450,000 reservations for the Model 3. And there was one of the analysts saying, what's your rate of conversion? So when you send it out, how many people are going ahead and configuring on the configurator and going ahead and ordering a Model 3? And on face value, you'd think it seems like a good idea. But actually, it's kind of pointless, because there's different options in the configurator, and there's different options for the car as well. So you can only buy the long range at the moment. Maybe you're waiting for the short range. Maybe you're waiting for the dual motor. Maybe all you can really spec at the moment is the paint and the wheels. All you would have done is said to Elon, what's the bounce rate, as it were? What's the rate of people who get the email for the configurator and don't take you up on the offer? And he would have gone 10%. And then there's an article saying 45,000 people, 10% of the 450,000, aren't taking Tesla up on the Model 3. It was kind of a question which only really had a negative answer. And so, listening back to it a couple of times, I kind of understand why Elon's like, I'm not answering that. He could have given them a number, but whatever that number was going to be spun in a certain way. Anyway, so following and if you missed the story, by the way, following the earnings call, billions wiped off Tesla's market capitalization and the share value. I thought at the time, well, it's not because he was a bit grumpy with an analyst. But it does look more and more like he had a bit of a go at a couple of stupid questions, and people genuinely sold off the stock. So that story rumbled on, and then yesterday Elon tweeted this, and I quote, "The dry questions were not asked by investors, but rather by two sell-side analysts who are trying to justify their Tesla short thesis. They are on the opposite side of an investor. Hyperchange represents actual investors, so I switched to them." End quote, and that's when Elon was talking about dry questions. The whole kind of short selling and betting on a company failing is beyond my knowledge and beyond my understanding of why you would want to do that. If it makes you a very rich person by hoping someone's going to fail, you go ahead and do that. I stay well away from even trying to understand it. BYD have showed off a new concept of a new 370-mile range electric vehicle. It's called the E-Seed, and it's got 600 Ks or 370 miles of range. It's a concept, so as I always say, it could run on magic fairy dust because concepts can have whatever specs you want to make up. 3.9 seconds 0 to 62 miles an hour and an all-wheel drive powertrain. Let's hope that we do one day see the BYD E-Seed. Next, and not so much a correction, but more, it's a clarification. Yeah, that sounds like I got it less wrong. So, Nissan at the recent Chinese auto show, Auto China 2018, unveiled what was a Nissan Leaf from the front, but then by the time you saw the side and the rear view was a Nissan Leaf plus a little bit extra. This is the Sylphy. Anyway, this is for the Chinese market, and it's going to be going on sale very soon. Sometime this year, it's going to be on sale, of course, based on the Nissan Leaf. And I did, on a couple of podcasts ago, I speculated if it's completely based on the Nissan Leaf, and it's got all the same tech, by the way. It's got e-pedal, and it's got all the same tech that you would find in the normal Nissan Leaf. And from the front, spitting image. From the side, oh yeah, there's a bit more on the back, and it's just for the Chinese market. I did wonder if they were finishing off using some of the same battery packs, the 40 kilowatt-hour AESC batteries, the company that, of course, Nissan sold off. Some clarification on that. No, it's going to be CATL, the Contemporary Amperex Technology Limited Company. They confirmed a couple of days ago that for the Nissan Sylphy in China, they're going to be using the Chinese-made battery packs for that. Now, Vattenfall in Sweden, they're a state-owned utility company, and they're going to get together to have a partnership with the Volvo cars, Geely-owned Volvo cars, of course, to help charge your EV at home. And Christian Elverfors, the Volvo Cars managing director, said this: "Our strategy going forward is to focus aggressively on electrified cars. A functioning infrastructure for charging is therefore needed, both in the community and where our customers live." Now, according to Vattenfall, 90% of all electric vehicle charging happens at work or at home. And that actually, I'll chime in with a Nissan study that I saw ages ago. And it was either 96 or 93% in the Nissan study of people who have the option of at work charging. All of their charging is done at home or at work. It was definitely in the mid-90s. So anyway, back to this story, and under the partnership, says Reuters, Volvo car owners can visit the Volvo website and order a charging box. Vattenfall will to look after the delivery, the installation and servicing of the unit as well, to make that part of owning an EV a little bit more frictionless, I believe they call it. You buy your car, you go online, you sort out your charger, and it all just gets delivered. And finally, we'll end up in the UK, where there was a little bit more clarity today on what will happen to electric cars after 2040, where you won't be able to buy a car, or a brand new car at least, that hasn't got at least 50 miles of pure electric range, and this is the new plan. So we've heard lots about different countries banning ICE cars from 2025, 2030, 2040, but this new direction from the UK, this isn't actually, I think, set in stone, but this is the plan. Every new car must be capable at least of doing 50 miles on electric power alone by 2040. And this is just for buying new cars. Now, the UK government have called it Road to Zero, and it's their new plan to boost the uptake of hybrid cars and pure electric BEVs, and of course, cut CO2 and NOx emissions as well. Now, last year, the UK government said that they were going to be banning non-electrified vehicles for sale from 2040. So government ministers came out and said electric cars only, which was a bit of news. And then, understandably, pretty quickly, everybody from blogs to magazines, car magazines, to motor writers, and I brought it up at the time on our Twitter feed to say, can we get some clarification on that, Mr. Government Minister? When you say that only electric cars are going to be sold after 2040, you mean pure BEVs, right? And they kind of went, we'll get back to you. Then about a day later, and there was more pressure on the government, and we said, so what do you mean only electric cars after 2040? They went, you mean electrified cars? So, of course, then you go back and go, well, when you say electrified cars, do you mean soft hybrids? So 48-volt hybrids that have got some sort of way of starting the motor after shutting down at motorway speeds? Do you mean plug-in hybrid electric vehicles with a meaningful battery size? Do you mean the kind of hybrid like a Toyota Prius hybrid? What about Rexes? And the government, for a while, went, you know what, we'll get back to you. We're going to have a look into this. I get the feeling statements were being made a few months ago when they're saying, hey, electric cars, 2040, we're on the bandwagon as well. We're so green in the UK. And then when we started asking questions to me, so what do you mean electric cars? They were, yeah, we're not quite sure. We'll get back to you. Today, they did get back to us, and they have clarified that it's the 50 miles which they're going to go for. The UK government are very proud of themselves that they have put a date in the diary, 2040. All new cars must have a battery that can do 50 miles. I think the economics of the whole thing is going to happen way before 2040, but these kind of things, a little bit more of a clear message is welcome. Well, thank you for letting me get that off my chest. You know, for me today, this has been therapy. So thank you so much. You have been my therapist today, listening to the frustration with government ministers who don't know electrified, plug-in hybrids and the rest. I would love to spread the word about electric cars, wouldn't you? Let's bring more people into the party. Please share the podcast with somebody who might be interested. Every previous episode of the podcast, they're online, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, what else? SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and evnewsdaily.com. Remember to subscribe. It means you haven't got to think about downloading it every day because you're going to get it first and free and automatically. It would mean a lot if you could rate and review on whatever platform you download this from. And if you want to say hi over the weekend on Facebook, LinkedIn or Twitter, save me from doing any DIY decorating over the bank holiday weekend that we have here in the UK. And I can explain to my wife, I can't do the painting. I'm replying to somebody on Twitter. Search EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day and I'll catch you tomorrow.